info. Okay, so you can do it that way, right? That's the way that I basically was. I'm just showing you how I was doing it. I basically came in, messed around, played with it in that function, right? Eric Mail Francis just came in to say, Sonny, you're one of the best teachers I had. You got good vibes from the job. Eric, I appreciate you. Thank you so much, brother. 1.3k likes inbound very shortly. Right. Now what we're going to do is we're actually going to get rid of all of the others. So we're going to get rid of this. We're going to get rid of that. We're going to get rid of this. So I'm going to make it very clean for you. Okay. And then I'm going to basically build out as we need it. Okay. So now I'm going to go ahead and actually get the schema, category, block content, author, and I'm going to delete. Oh no, sorry, no, not the schema. Okay, don't delete the schema. Okay, let's go. Delete those. Right. No. Okay. I deleted the wrong one. Okay,
that's
delete
amazing.
Those. That's it. And now here, I want to basically copy and paste page info, and I'm just going to keep creating different ones, right? So page info is one, experience is the next one. So I want you guys to, you can feel free to pause the video and get here. I'm basically building the back end of the database, right? So for experience, we're going to do something very similar, but I'm going to go ahead and show you the difference, right? So experience, and these are the different fields. So job title, company image, company, they started, they ended, is currently working here because it's going to say present on the experience tab if you are, technologies, and that's going to reference schema as well, and points is going to be an array of type string. Okay, so that's going to be a different one. We're also going to have another one which is going to be for project. Again, this is going to be for the individual projects. So let's go ahead and rename that as well. So I'm just going ahead and saying project.js, and you guys can feel free to take a pause and have a look at this to copy it out as you feel fresh. The code is also available in the GitHub repo, so don't forget that, right? Next thing you know, we're going to have the skills. So we're going to say skill.js, and this is going to be how we're going to label out the backend for skills. So in this case, I'm going to do this one right here. So this is the layout that I've done here. And what we've done is we actually added a validation in. So it has to be a minimum of 0 and a maximum of 100. All right, thank you, Ben. He says, I'm loving the consistent lady. I'm really trying. So I really appreciate that comment, dude. Thank you. All right, and the final one is we're going to have socials. So here I'm actually going to have something called a social. So let's go ahead and put this in here. And you can see it's got a title and a URL. And that's going to resemble all of the different socials that are going to show up in the header of our app. Okay. So that should be everything. Now if we go to our schema, we should see, thank you, Ben. He goes, it's crazy how the value doesn't drop the quantity. It takes a lot of work, I ain't going to lie, but it will do it for you guys. So thank you so much. Alright. So here what we're going to do is, once we're inside of our schema, I didn't save it. I'm going to go ahead and grab this and paste it in. So, okay. So I've got my page info there, and that's weird. Okay. I'm going to go ahead and pop in the phone. So I'm basically going to list out all of the different schemas in here. You see what we're doing? We're basically concatenating all of the different schemas that we've just created into one global schema. Okay. So in that case, we're done with that bit, all right? So now what we need to do is run our Sanity. So Sanity gives us two ways of viewing our CMS. Firstly, we can run it locally. Secondly, we can deploy our CMS platform online, but it's secure because you would have to log in with the Sanity account that you approve or that you created it with. So you can actually add several users to your backend as well, so that way they can log in and change things as well. Imagine you have content creators, that kind of stuff, they can do that as well. Right. So here I'm going to go ahead and say yarn run cd sanity, and we've installed the Sanity CLI tool as I showed you before. So now what we can do is we can type in sanity start, and let's see if we did all of our setup correctly. Right. So this should go ahead set up on our local environment, and we should be able to log in and do what we need to do. Let's actually go ahead and save these files as well because I didn't save them. Okay. It's compiling it, and then it will go ahead and start it up on our server. So localhost 3333, awesome. Let's go check it out. Localhost 3, and then you can see the Sanity Studio below. And as you can see, nobody can just log into it. So we're actually going to go ahead and log in. So I'm going to log into Google. So I'm clicking Google, I am now logging in, and then I can see that I have now got errors in my schema. Okay, so that's fine. We're going to go ahead and check it out. So it says invalid type if skill is already defined in schema full. Let's go figure out what that is. So unknown type social. So I probably haven't saved my things here, right? That's probably the issue here. So if I was to go ahead and check my skill, there we go. That's all good. Project and so forth. Let's go ahead and see this for ourselves. And then we've got project, page info, experience. Okay, Okay, so I just didn't save my files, that's all it was. Okay, so now I want to give you a little demonstration of the Sanity backend, right? So this is where the magic really happens, right? So let's first check out page info. So if I go into page info and I click create document, so in this case, this is essentially going to be mapped to eventually to what I have over here, right? So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and show you how we can go ahead and do this right now. So if we were to go ahead and pop it in right now, so imagine I said Sunny, Sanga, and then I was like software engineer, and so forth. And then I went ahead and dropped in the email, dropped in the image, background information would be, as I scroll down here, would be this kind of stuff and so forth. So what I'm actually going to do now is I'm going to show you my deployed version, and I'm going to basically streamline the process of doing this for you. So the skills would resemble the different skills that we would have and so forth. So I'm actually going to basically save us a bit of time. Rather than input all of this again, what you can definitely do, you just click add and you start adding out this information. And eventually I'll show you how we can go ahead and pop this skill as well. Social would represent all of the social tags. So this would be Twitter, and then it would be the URL for your Twitter account. Project would be your project title, your summary, different technologies that you've used, and notice how this would reference the old technologies inside of skill. So in this case, if I didn't have a skill, I can even create a skill from here and reference it. So it's a fully relational connected database, okay? So it's very, very powerful stuff. So at this point, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to load up my old Sanity Studio, because I've actually already pre-filled this one, and I'll show you how we can work like so. This will save a bit of time as opposed to me adding manually again. Actually show you how to do this. Alright, so I'm going to do is tap this one. I'm going to run it on my other machine, and that will go ahead and launch it on localhost 3000. Okay, so you want to have that running on the side as well. Okay. So let's give that a second, and then go ahead and log in. So now I've got that loaded, I'm going to go ahead and refresh my localhost. And I've actually gone ahead and done this beforehand. So Jay and me went out and spent a lot of time filling this out. So if we look at page info now, you can see I've added in a bunch of pictures, a bunch of different things, right? So in this case, I've got a bunch of numbers, a bunch of this, that. It's not wrong, but don't worry. Skill is going to have all the different skills. You can have Next.js, you can have JavaScript, and we've also got progress. Remember, I had those different progress metrics. So I want you at this point to basically go ahead and put all of your data inside of here, right? Same for experience. You can see we've got all of these ones. So for example, if I click on CEO and Papa, you can see the company, the date started, technologies used, you can see how it's linked, and different points as to how and where, and basically the selling points for why you think that's a good thing to put on your resume. Same thing for the socials. So again, you can put on links, you can put on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube accounts, and so forth. And it's going to go ahead and eventually pull those in like we need to. Same thing for the project. So with that bit done, what if I want to go ahead and deploy this, right? So what we can actually do is I can either use it on my local host, or I can actually even deploy this, and I can go ahead and do the following. So Sanity deploy. And if I do Sanity deploy now, this is actually going to deploy the one that hasn't got the information in, but I'll show you just for reference. You can go ahead and give it a studio name, so I can go ahead and say something like portfolio YouTube demo, and I can hit enter. And what this will do right now is it will actually have essentially another copy of the studio on my machine. That way my team, for example, when I was building this, I deployed my Sanity Studio. Jay was filling in the information while I was coding it out the rest of the build. So you can see how you can actually work in a real-time environment like this. Just remember, your local host is always going to be up to date. Your Sanity Studio is going to be the one that's probably going to be behind if you add anything else. So you have to redeploy. But you can actually have live collaboration between the two things, which is awesome. Right. So this is amazing. See everyone kind of going silent. 1.3k likes. This is nuts. We have 300 people still watching the video. Right. So there you go. You can deploy, and as you can see, we can go ahead and reach over there. Now, as I mentioned before, it is secured. It's logged. Like you see, I'm actually logged in right now, which is why I can come to it. And this is the one without the documents inside. But that is what it would be how you can actually deploy. It's very simple. Now that would be forever up. So even in a production environment, you can go ahead and do that as you need to, okay? So let's carry on. I've got my local host here that's working well for me. What I now need to do is go ahead, and what's awesome as well is you can go ahead and
that's amazing.
Right? So next steps are, let's go to our front end and we need to now pull our information from our front end. Right, so what we're going to do is essentially use something called the Grok query language to go ahead and query the backend and get the information that we need, right? So in this case, let's go ahead and do an example of this. So they have a special querying language called the Grok query language. It's actually very simple to use it. And in this case, for example, we have a type called social. So if you notice, there was a type called social here. And we know this because if we go to our social, let's go to our social right here. You remember the name of here, that's the type, right? So social. So if I try and query for everything that is of type social, and I hit one, it's similar to GraphQL in the sense that it will return a bunch of documents back to me. Okay, so I've actually pre-populated these queries to help you out, and we're going to go ahead and create API endpoints using Next.js's backend functionality. Create those endpoints, and then we're going to communicate to our backend from our Next.js front end, and then we're going to go ahead and have a full stack integration, right? And then we're going to render it on the front end. So lots of stuff coming in, and it's all going to be on TypeScript. It's all going to be protected. Everything's going to be awesome. I promise you. Okay. So let's carry on. Let's move strongly on. So at this point, what we can now do, guys, is we can go ahead and if I close this out, let's just make our first thing I want you to do before you forget is I want you to go into your git ignore file, and I want you to add in the following. I want you to add in sanity. Hold on a second. Let me just double check. I want you to add in sanity/node modules. Right, anyway, it doesn't matter. The reason being is because that way, when we refresh it, we get the correct number of source control changes. Otherwise, it goes nuts and you think you're trying to commit your node module, which you're not. Right? So at this point, what I'd like to showcase to you is if we go to our pages, you'll see we have an API here. This is a full Node.js backend that we have running by default when we have a Next.js app. So if you notice, if I head over to localhost 3000, my app is there, right? But if I go to /API/hello, you will see I have an endpoint running on the backend, right? So this is all because we have this API and you see /hello. So that's how the Next.js page routing works. Also works for its API endpoints. So inside of API now, I'm going to create a bunch of different endpoints, and these are going to have the responsibility of connecting to my Sanity backend and then pulling in the information that is needed. So first things first, we need to connect to Sanity. So I'm going to use a library called Next.Sanity. Alright, so let's go ahead and do that right now. So this is the Sanity token for Next.js. I'm going to show you how we do that right now. So head over to installation, and we need to do the following. So I'm going to do yarn install Next.Sanity and a bunch of other useful helpers. Let's go ahead and do that. Command J. I'm going to make sure you're not in the wrong folder. So I need to CD up a level. So I'm at my main folder, and then I install my dependencies. Look, the Sanities folder also has dependencies of its own. Okay. Amazing stuff. Doing amazing, guys. Nearly at 1.4k likes as well. Alright, so once that's done, we're going to go ahead and create our endpoints. Okay. So the first one I'm going to create is an example. Actually, before we do that, I need to actually create a Sanity helper. Alright, so I'll show you what I mean by that. But we essentially are going to create a file down here called sanity.ts. Okay. And this sanity.ts file, so make sure you install it just like I have. We're going to go ahead and do the following. So we need to import some helpers right here. Now this is all available on the Sanity docs online. Essentially what we need to do now is create something called a config. Right, so the config will look something like this. Okay, so it's a config, we have to say the data set, and we're going to show you how to set up your environment variables, and we don't pass in data sets, it's going to be production. Okay, the project ID, we have to pass that in, and then again there's a CDN. So if we're in the production environment, it will use the CDN, otherwise it won't if it's a development environment. Okay, this is how we're going to connect to the Sanity CMS platform that we just created. Okay, and then we need a helper function to go ahead and actually get the images as well. So this is actually going to be one of our helper functions. It's called URL4, and what it's essentially doing is it's using a Sanity helper that they've created to turn the picture that we see on the Sanity platform that I showed you previously. So it was actually, where was it? It was here. So any of these images that you guys can see, let's go ahead and check out, for example, like this one. If we go in here, so this picture, for example, how we can pull that and get a URL that we can then render on the screen. Okay, so in this case, this is going to be a helper function. So first thing we need to do is create this. Now we need to create something called environment variable. So firstly, I'm going to do a .env.example. Now this is good practice. You should always have an example file, so that way when you commit it, you haven't got incorrect things. So the example here is actually next public sanity data set, next public sanity project ID, and next public URL. Now they're all next public because we don't mind if these get sent. Okay. The next thing I need you to do is I want you to go ahead and copy and paste this environment example, except this time we're going to go ahead and name it to environment.local. And this is the one that we're going to be using. It's actually going to get picked up by the Next.js server. Okay? So at this point now, what I want you to do is we're going to go ahead and put in our first value inside of here. So I'm going to go ahead and go to my example. I'm going to go ahead and put up in production. The project ID, I'll show you how to do it. Now for the base URL, everything that we're trying to basically connect to is off of our existing local API. So it's actually our base URL is localhost 3000 at the moment. So we're going to use HTTP localhost 3000 as our base URL for now. And the project ID is the next step. So how do you get the project ID? Well, click on login at Sanity's website. Go ahead and log in to the account you've set things up with. And I'll show you how we find this. Now this is the one that we went ahead and connected, built just now. I'm going to be using this one, which is the pre-populated one that I created beforehand. So as you can see, if I click into it now, you can see boosted free. That means you successfully redeemed the coupon in the correct way. Now as you can see, members, it's got me right here. So I'm an admin, and you can go ahead and add members, that kind of stuff. You've got the project ID, and you've got your deployed studio. Remember the one that I showed you how to deploy. So here you can do access rows. You can go ahead and grant access rows, access keys, that kind of stuff. But as we're doing only read only today, we don't need to worry about that, right? I'm going to make a future video in a future build where we can do a lot more of those kind of things with both access rows. But in this case, we can go ahead and copy the project ID like so. So I can go ahead and save, and now we have it in the example. Oops, I've done it in the wrong one. This is actually in the wrong one. I can actually keep that stuff here, but this should have been the one that I wanted to put in production. And then we're going to go ahead and say base URL. This one right here. I went a bit nuts with the zoom, you know, right? Okay, cool stuff. Right, so this is pretty good so far. So we got that. The next thing you want to do is go to your node compiler running, and it should say loaded. That's new. They never used to do that, but I always, for safety, I just cut my server and I restart it to make sure that it pulls in my new environment variables. Now these environment variables are going to differ. When we deploy this online, we're going to be able to basically go ahead and customize this. But I'm going to show you today how you can do it with the CLI tool as well. Right? So let's go ahead and do the following. So now what I want to do is, if I need to go ahead and access those variables, you say process.environment, then next public. The reason why you have this is because you might have a staging environment, you might have a deployment, a development environment, you might have a production environment, all that kind of stuff, and they can be different. In which case, you might want to use different Sanity studios or different projects for your dummy account, for your real account, and so forth. Right? So all that kind of stuff is into why you need to do it. So at this point, we have Sanity's helper created. Now we need to go ahead and actually pull stuff in as we need to. So what we need to do is create our first URL endpoint. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create one for the socials. Okay. So going over to hello.ts, I'm going to create a file here. I'm going to call this get.socials.ts. And what we're essentially going to do here is I'm going to show you a bunch of different endpoints that we're going to import. A bunch of different hello there. Right? So the typings we're going to create in just a second. Right. So you're going to need these as helper functions.
That's amazing.
Blocks that we can make grok queries. We're going to import the Sanity client helper from the one that we just created. First step is we create our grok query. Right. So heading over to our source section over here, the first thing you want to do is you want to test out your query. Right. So in this case, I just want to pull everything from social. Right. So in this case, if I do this query, you can see that that gives me this result. Okay, so the first step I want to do here, guys, is I want to go ahead and actually just say const query equals, and I'm going to go ahead and say grok, and then backticks. Okay, and then here I can just basically paste in this query, right? Because I've tested it, I know it works, and that's how I'm going to do it. Okay. So that looks pretty good now. Now the second thing I want to do is I'm going to create a type definition, but I'm going to do that afterwards in just a second, right? So I'm going to actually go ahead and set up a Next.js templated endpoint. So if you don't know how to do this, the simple way of doing it is you simply copy the one that they give you, paste it in, and change it up. Right? So the data is actually the type here. So in this case, we can say type data equals, and we have to basically pass in a data value, right? So in this case, we're saying what should the response be structured as? And essentially what we're going to do is respond with a list of social elements. So these are all going to be social types. Okay? So eventually we're going to have some kind of special type that we're going to write with social. It's going to be an array of them. Okay? Then what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and say that we're going to have const socials. So we're going to create a new object, which is an array of social. We're going to say equals await. Right, so notice how this is going to be an asynchronous function. So we have to do like async, right? And also in the new JavaScript, they've actually got rid of the top level work, which is awesome. Right? We're going to say sanity time dot, and we're going to say fetch the query. So what this will essentially do is we'll go to our backend, execute that query, okay, that we've got in here, execute it, and then it will get pulled back into this. So this result will come back into here, right? Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to return this on the back end like so. So this will return 200 with JSON. Inside of it will be socials. Okay, so we're going to do this a bunch of times. I'm going to show you how we can create the type definitions and so forth. So we're going to do the type definitions right now so we can get past that error. So typings.d.ts, and I'll create a type definition file for our project. So now one thing I want to mention is all of these sanity responses tend to have the following property. They will all tend to have something like this. Sanity body will always have something that created that, ID, rev, or updated that. Alright, so I'm going to create a base sanity body interface. And what we can do in interfaces are they're basically just inheritable types. So in this case, I'm going to create a new interface and call this one the image type. And we're just going to do that afterwards. I'm going to create the first one, which is going to be social. Okay, so this one we're going to say export interface. Richard B says, hey, son, I learned from you. Golden, you really are one of the best resources I've come across. Thank you for everything. So you truly are master nature. Thank you, dude. I appreciate you so much. That means everything to me. Right? So we're going to say export interface social. And what we're doing is we're extending sanity body. So we're saying this is a type or an interface, but it has all of this and it has extra stuff. Okay? So then what I did is I looked through here and I thought, okay, what do we have different here? So in this case, here we have a type which is always going to be the value social. Then we have a title which is string and a URL.
Hello there.
Right, so I've essentially done this for you for all of the following ones to come. Right? Now images inside of here will actually come in slightly different. So if I change this to page info, what you will see is page info comes back with a bunch of stuff. Now page info, we actually only want the first value, right? So I only want the first value because it's only going to be one document inside there. Now notice how images come back in this weird format, right? So rather than showing that weird format every single time, I've created a type definition to help you out, right? So I've gone ahead and I've masked that one over here, so you have the correct type definition. Now to save time, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through each different type and I'm going to go ahead and put it out onto the screen and show you how we're going to go ahead and do it. So the first one is page info. So we've already done social. Then I'm going to do page info, so you can see we've got page info, type string, and this is essentially just what I've done. I've just mimicked it out, and they all extend the same volume, right? The next one I'm going to do is technology. This is going to be like your experience, that kind of stuff, right? Same thing, very simple, straightforward. Skill, we're going to do as well. Okay, so skill is going to be another one. Hit save. We're going to do the same thing for project, and project even references. Remember, some of them were referencing other ones. So in this case, technology is actually going to be referenced here. So you've got type technology array. That's completely fine. You can do that. And then we've got experience, which we haven't done yet. So experience we haven't done yet. So we're going to pop in experience over here. So at this point, you can feel free to pause the video as I was doing that and just basically copy out the type definitions. But I just shown you how Savvy says seems lazy, Sunny, is it? No, it's not lazy because I've done the hard work for you, but it's already 3 hours in and we've still got a lot to do. So I don't want to spend ages just doing things which are unnecessary. Instead, I've shown you how to do one, and then I've shown you how to basically go ahead and copy this up. Right? So that's basically it. Right? The main principle is that you just, that's how you would find the types and go ahead and write them. Okay, so we've done our first type definition, so I can go ahead and import this in. Done. So that's our first backend type done. Okay, so what I'm going to mention now is I'm going to go ahead and do the following. So I've already done get socials. I'm going to do the same thing for all the different types now. So let's go ahead and do get skills as well, right? So get skills, I'm going to do the same thing, guys, because trust me, we have a lot to do, right? Get skills, yes, get skills, yes. That's going to be next one. I'll copy and paste it, and then I'm going to go ahead and change this up. Still, we're doing the same query, but we're just changing this up. We're changing it to this. This is now going to be skill instead. And we're going to go ahead and change this to a skill array. And this is now going to be, rather than socials, it's going to be skills. As simple as that. Very simple. Swipe away from it. So, right, so we're doing the same thing, we're just changing it to a skill query instead. We're going to copy this again. We're going to do the same thing for projects. Right? Now, for projects, remember, I said we actually had we done get projects, so I'm going to show you. So remember, in projects we actually had something a bit more interesting. So for projects, what we actually had was a situation where we have referenced fields, right? So it's projects, right? So we had reference fields. So example is technology. This is a reference. Now, when you have references in Sanity, what we can do is I can say I want everything, but for the technologies, right? So technologies, what I can do is I can say I want an array, but I want you to expand them. So that means expansion. And I can go ahead and say what fields I want. If I want all of them, I'll just do that. And now, if I click into technology, you'll see it's expanded the reference type, right? So it will go ahead and get that information as well. So project, that's how I've gone ahead and found that one as well. Okay? So for projects, what I've done is I've gone ahead and essentially copied that out as well. So we've got type project technology expanding with an array type. Make sure you add that. If you don't add the array, no one will get super confused. Trust me, that happened to me. Alright, so at this point we're going to say project is what gets returned back, and rather than the skill type, we're going to change it to amazing stuff. Get projects is done. We're going to do the same thing for get page info as well. So this one's going to be get page info, like so. So here we're going to get page info. The exact same thing. Remember I said for page info, what I did actually want to do was make it so they only got the first one, right? So in this case, we're going to only get the first thing back. And then what we're going to say is rather than projects, it's going to be page info. And what I want you to do here is this is not going to be it's going to be a single value back. So we need to change that accordingly. Okay? And this one's going to be page info. Right? So page info type done as well. Final one is get experience, right? Get experience is very similar to get projects, where we had that reference field. So in this case, I'm going to do the same thing here. I'm going to say get experience. Get experience. .ts, and here I'm going to go ahead and do the following. So where we have the same thing happening for a project, we just do experience, just like that. Right? And then here it's going to be plural. I'm going to have, rather than projects, it's going to be experiences. Here it's going to be experience instead of that type. So I'm just changing it here, experience. And now you can see we have the same thing happening as we need it. So all of these endpoints now will go ahead and fetch the relevant information. So you don't believe me, let me go ahead and show you right now. So if I go over to / let's just say get socials, hit enter, you will now see this is making a call to the back end, and bam, I get my socials back. So I've created an API endpoint now, right? So these are all working API endpoints. Guys, we're about to break 1.4K likes. Well, let's end this strong, right? I think we bloody might hit 2,000 at this rate with the way it's going. But yeah, the type is a return from the endpoint. Yes, exactly. So it allows us to type check. Right? So this is awesome. Really, really good stuff, right? You guys can see that LinkedIn, that kind of stuff. Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create helpful utility functions on the front end for each of those. And then we're going to use those utility functions to make our life easier on the front end. So heading over to package.json at that level, create a folder, call it utils. Inside of there, I'm going to create something called fetch skills. I'm going to start with this one. It's going to be a type file. And the reason why I'm doing this is basically it's going to be a very easy way to go ahead and actually pull the information in. So first thing I want to do is I'm going to import the skill typing from skill. Right, and this is going to be our front end call now. So the other one was the back end. This is going to be the front end, right? So we're going to say export const fetch skills. Export const, sorry, const fetch skills. It's going to be an asynchronous function. So in this case, I need to say it's an asynchronous function. Okay. And here, what I need to do is make a call to my backend. Right? So in this case, what I'm now going to do is I'm going to make the following call. So const res equals await fetch, and I'm basically doing backticks here. I'm passing process.m.base URL /API /get skills. So basically, what I showed you here is exactly what I'm doing. That's actually get socials example, but here it would be no different. It'll just be get skills. Right? So okay. So that's basically what's going to come out. Okay. And then what we're going to basically say is the data is going to be await res.json. Right? So a very standard programming practice, If you find this confusing, join us over as it's like, girl, I teach you this stuff inside out.